In the peaceful town of Oakwood, 12-year-old Thomas loved science more than anything. His dark eyes sparkled whenever he talked about plants and how they helped the earth. On this sunny Tuesday, Thomas walked through Westfield Park with care. He wore his blue school jumper and carried a small notebook. His teacher, Mrs. Wilson, had given the class a special project about local plants. Thomas wanted his project to be the best. The boy moved slowly through the park. He bent down every few steps to look at leaves or dig small holes for soil samples. He put each sample in a clear plastic bag and wrote notes about where he found it. Thomas drew small pictures of the plants too. His face was serious as he worked, showing how much he cared about doing things right. "This one has 5 points on each leaf," he said to himself, touching a maple leaf gently. "And the soil here feels different from the last spot," he wrote. Everything down in neat handwriting. Thomas had learned from his father that good scientists keep careful notes. The park was quiet that afternoon. Most children were still in school, but Thomas's class had finished early because of teacher meetings. He had asked his father if he could stop at the park on his way home to collect samples. His dad would pick him up in an hour. As he worked, Thomas moved closer to the edge of the park. Across the street stood large brick houses with perfect gardens. Thomas didn't notice how close he was getting to these fancy homes. He was too busy looking at a group of interesting mushrooms growing near a big oak tree. In the third house from the corner, Emma Thompson stood at her living room window. She had moved to Oakwood just 3 months ago after getting divorced. Everything in this town still felt strange to her. Emma didn't know her neighbors yet and kept to herself most days. Through her curtains, Emma watched the young boy in the park. Thomas didn't look like the other children she had seen in this neighborhood. His skin was darker, and his clothes, while clean and neat, weren't the expensive brands the other local kids wore. She frowned as she saw him digging in the dirt and putting things in bags. "What is he doing?" Emma whispered to herself, feeling uneasy. She had read on the neighborhood online group about break-ins 2 towns over. Her mind jumped to bad thoughts right away. He's probably checking which houses are empty during the day. Emma's heart beat faster as she watched Thomas write in his notebook. In her mind, he wasn't taking science notes but writing down which houses might be easy to break into. She didn't see a curious student. She saw a threat to her new home. She picked up her phone from the coffee table, never taking her eyes off. Thomas. Her fingers shook slightly as she dialed. The boy had moved a bit closer to the street now, looking at some flowers growing near the park fence. "Hello, police. Yes, I need to report something," Emma said in a low, nervous voice. She gave her address and then continued. "There's a suspicious boy in our neighborhood. He doesn't live around here. He's putting things in bags and writing notes. I think he might be planning to break into homes." She kept her voice down as if Thomas might hear her through the closed window. The voice on the other end asked for a description, and Emma gave it, making Thomas sound much more threatening than the focused student he actually was. "Please hurry," she added at the end. After hanging up, Emma continued to watch. Part of her felt she was doing the right thing, protecting her neighborhood. A smaller part wondered if she was overreacting, but she pushed that thought away. Outside, in the warm sunshine, Thomas had no idea what was happening. He checked his watch, seeing he still had 30 minutes before his dad would come. He smiled, thinking about how proud his father would be of all the samples he had collected. Tomorrow in class, he would have more to show than anyone else. He carefully put his notebook down on a park bench and organized his sample bags. Each one was labeled with the location and time it was collected. His teacher had taught the class the importance of recording everything properly. Thomas wanted to be a doctor like his father someday, and he knew good science started with good observations. In the distance, though Thomas couldn't hear it yet, police sirens began to wail. The police car pulled up to the edge of Westfield Park, with flashing lights but no siren. Officer James and Officer Robert stepped out, their eyes quickly finding the boy with the notebook. They had been told to expect someone suspicious, possibly planning break-ins. What they saw instead was a small boy in a school uniform, kneeling by some flowers. "Remember, approach carefully," Officer James said quietly to his partner. "We don't know what he's doing." They walked across the grass with measured steps. Thomas was so focused on counting the petals of a wildflower that he didn't notice them until their shadows fell across his notebook. He looked up, startled to see two tall police officers standing over him. "Excuse me, young man. What are you doing here?" Officer James asked. His voice was firm but not angry. Thomas felt his stomach drop. Police officers had never spoken to him before. His father had taught him to be respectful to police, but also to be careful. He stood up slowly, careful not to drop his samples. "Hello, sir. I'm collecting plant samples for my science project," Thomas explained. His voice came out smaller than he wanted. He held out his notebook to show them, opening it to pages filled with careful drawings of leaves and notes about soil types. Officer Robert, the younger of the two, looked surprised. The notebook was clearly the work of a serious student. The handwriting was neat and there were detailed observations written beside each drawing. "What school do you go to?" Officer Robert asked, his tone lightening a bit. "Oakwood Primary, sir. Mrs. Wilson's class." "We're studying how plants grow in different soils," Thomas answered. His heart was still beating too fast, but he tried to sound calm. "My dad knows I'm here. He's picking me up soon." Before the officers could respond, there was the sound of quick footsteps on the pavement. Emma Thompson was hurrying across the street toward them. She wore house slippers and a cardigan, as if she had rushed out without thinking. Her face was tight with worry and something else. Maybe fear, maybe anger. "That's him. That's the boy I called about," she said loudly, pointing at Thomas. "He's been hanging around here for over an hour. This is a nice neighborhood. He must be up to something." Thomas felt his chest tighten. He had never been in trouble before. He looked from the woman to the officers, trying to understand what was happening. "I'm just doing my homework, Mom," he said quietly, but Emma wasn't listening. "Did you check what's in those bags?" she demanded, gesturing to Thomas's sample bags. "Who knows what he's taking?" Officer James held up a hand to calm Emma down. "Mom, please, we're talking to him now." Officer Robert bent down to look at Thomas's notebook more closely. He turned a page, seeing detailed observations of plants and soil compositions. He noticed how Thomas's hands trembled slightly as he held the book open. "These are very good notes," Officer Robert said kindly. "You must really like science." Thomas nodded, still feeling scared, but a little less so. "Yes, sir, I want to be a doctor like my dad." Emma made a noise of disbelief. "A doctor? Look, officers, I'm sure he has a story ready, but the fact is, he doesn't belong in this neighborhood. I've never seen him here before." Thomas felt tears starting to form in his eyes, but he blinked them back. His father always told him to be strong, especially when things were hard. But this was harder than anything he had faced before. Officer James looked at Thomas with softer eyes now. "Can you tell me where you live, son?" "Maple Street, sir. Number 27. "The blue house with the big oak tree in the front," Thomas answered. His voice was steady now, thinking about home. Emma crossed her arms. "Maple Street? That's not even in this neighborhood. That's all the way on the other side of town." Officer James turned to her. "Ma'am, Maple Street is 3 blocks from here. It's very much in this neighborhood." Emma's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She hadn't expected this answer. "And your father's name?" Officer Robert asked Thomas. Thomas stood a little straighter. "Dr. David Williams, sir. He works at Central Hospital. He's the head of surgery there." At the mention of this name, both officers exchanged glances. Even Emma seemed to recognize it, her expression changing slightly. "Dr. Williams is your father?" Officer James asked, his tone completely different now. Thomas nodded. "Yes, sir. He's picking me up at 4 o'clock. That's in—" He checked his watch. 10 minutes, sir." The powerful black car slowed to a stop beside Westfield Park. Its engine hummed for a moment before going quiet. The car door opened, and a tall man stepped out. Dr. David Williams, known to many as Big Shag because of his broad shoulders and commanding presence, stood tall in his crisp white doctor's coat. He had come straight from the hospital after getting a worried text from Thomas. "Dad!" Thomas called out, his voice filled with relief. The tension in his small body seemed to melt away at the sight of his father. Dr. Williams walked toward the group with calm confidence. Each step showed his strength and dignity. His hospital ID badge hung clearly visible on his coat pocket, catching the afternoon sunlight. He had kind eyes but a serious expression as he looked at the 2 police officers standing near his son. "Good," "Afternoon, officers. I see you've met my son Thomas," Dr. Williams said in a deep, steady voice. "Is everything all right?" Though his words were polite, there was a hint of concern in his tone. Officer James straightened his back immediately when he recognized the man. Many people in Oakwood knew Dr. Williams, not just as a doctor, but as someone who helped the community. "Dr. Williams? From Central Hospital?" Officer James asked, though he already knew the answer. "The same," Dr. Williams nodded. His hand rested gently on Thomas's shoulder. "Thomas sent me a text when he saw your car. He was worried he might be in trouble for his science project." Emma Thompson stood a few steps back, her mouth slightly open in surprise. She had seen this man before, not in person, but on her television screen. Just last month, the local news had done a story about Dr. Williams saving a child's life during a very difficult surgery. The reporter had called him a medical hero, and now he was standing right in front of her, his hand on the shoulder, of the boy she had called the police about. "Your son explained he was collecting samples for school, but this lady had concerns," Officer Robert explained, gesturing toward Emma. She looked deeply uncomfortable now, shifting her weight from one foot to the other and avoiding Dr. Williams's eyes. Dr. Williams looked at Emma for a moment before turning back to the officers. "I understand concerns for neighborhood safety," he said calmly, "but Thomas is a student with a passion for science. Nothing more." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone. "Thomas is representing our school in the regional science fair next month," he explained, showing them pictures of Thomas in his science lab at school. "He's been working very hard on this project." Thomas stood a little taller next to his father, feeling safe again. Dr. Williams continued speaking to the officers, his voice warm but firm. "Thomas has been collecting samples from different parts of town to compare how plants grow in various soils. His project could help our community grow better gardens even in areas where the soil isn't so good." Officer Robert nodded, looking impressed. "That's quite advanced for your age," he said to Thomas. "My son has always been curious about the world," Dr. Williams said with pride in his voice. "I've encouraged that curiosity since he was very small." Dr. Williams turned his attention to Emma now. "I believe we haven't met before. I'm David Williams. My family has lived on Maple Street for 8 years now." Emma's face grew red. I'm Emma Thompson. I just moved here a few months ago." "Welcome to Oakwood," Dr. Williams said simply. There was no anger in his voice, just a gentle firmness. Emma looked down at her feet. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. You thought my son didn't belong here," Dr. Williams finished for her. The words hung in the air between them. Officer James cleared his throat. "Well, it seems this was just a misunderstanding. Thomas, you keep up the good work with your science project." "Thank you, sir," Thomas said quietly. Emma looked at Thomas now, really seeing him for the first time. She saw his careful notes, his labeled samples, and the intelligent look in his eyes. She saw what she had missed before because she had been looking for something else entirely. "I'm sorry," she said again, this time directly to Thomas. "I made a mistake." Thomas looked up at his father, unsure how to respond. Dr. Williams gave him a small nod. "It's okay," Thomas said, though it wasn't completely okay, but his father had taught him about forgiveness too. Thomas stood in the bright community center, his hands slightly shaking as he presented his science project about using plants to clean polluted soil. The room was full of people, including Officers James and Robert, several neighbors, and Emma Thompson, who sat quietly in the audience. As Thomas explained his research, his passion shone through. He talked about how certain plants could remove harmful chemicals from the ground, making damaged earth healthy again. His display was colorful and detailed, showing different soil samples and the plants that could help clean them. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Thomas felt proud, his earlier nervousness melting away. His father watched from the side, his eyes filled with pride and love. Emma Thompson, who had once criticized Thomas and his father, walked up to them after the presentation. Her face looked different, softer, more understanding. "Thomas," she said, "your project is amazing. I want to apologize for how I behaved before." Dr. Williams, Thomas's father, responded kindly. "Thank you for coming today, and for being honest about your past mistakes. Emma explained that this experience had changed her. She realized she had been quick to judge people without understanding their lives or circumstances. Dr. Williams, seeing her genuine remorse, invited her to join the Community Council's new neighborhood program. Months passed, and things began to change. The park where Thomas had once been questioned became a community garden. Children from different parts of town started working together, learning about plants, nature, and each other. Emma became a dedicated volunteer, helping to organize and support the program. At the regional science fair, Thomas's hard work paid off. He won first place, with his father and Emma cheering loudly. The project that had started as a way to clean soil had become something much bigger, a bridge between people, a way to understand and respect each other. Thomas's journey showed how one small act of understanding could transform an entire community. His science project was more than just a school assignment. It was a lesson in compassion, growth, and the power of giving people a chance.